Welcome to Tip Tuesday, and today we're going to be looking at how to do counting in reports. So I'm going to turn my face off so we can see the lower left corner here. And what I've got here is a very basic report. It just lists gauges, the calibration, last date performed, and due date. And you can see that ABC Company has 19 gauges, 17 are past due. AFMES has 1 which is past due, and we have a total of 20 gauges, 18 past due. So the first thing I want to point out is that since we're dealing with a group, you want to make sure that the sort order on your data matches your group. So if I switch this to ID and company, you'll see I get 2 gauges in ABC Company, then 1 in AFMS because DNA goes in the middle, and then 17 in ABC Company. So that's something to be aware of, especially if you're doing any data where you're doing sub counts. You're going to be using the groups, and you want to make sure your sort matches that. So for the total items, we're just going to use a dbCalc object. That's this count star. So that's just this object, and then after I place it, I right click, choose calculations, and select count. And that's just going to give me a count of how many items are in here. And so since it's placed in the group footer, it resets after the group is done. For the one in the summary, it resets at the end of the report. Now, what people will typically do when they want to get a count is they'll next think, okay, I'm going to put a label down, and I'll do a little bit of calc logic in my detail before print. So I'll say if the due date is before today, then if the label is blank, I'll set it to 1. Otherwise, I'm going to add 1 to it. And then I can do the same thing with label 11. And so that's how you get the 17, the 1, and the 18. Now, in order to get this 1, I actually have to go to the group footer and reset label 10 after we get done displaying it. So that's one thing to be aware of. And if I change this report to a 2-pass report, you'll see this doubled from 18 to 36. That's because I did not reset it at the end of the report. So again, this, you have to manage these resets either by having a report on start second pass, or a summary after print, something like that. I'm just going to change the pass settings here. These are all relatively minor problems, easy to deal with. However, if I stretch down this detail band to simulate a longer report and hit preview, you'll see here we've got these items, and we go to the next page, and all of a sudden this says I have 19 past due and 20 past due. What's happening is this PIP002, the detail generates or attempts to run the before print at the bottom of this page. Once it does that, it figures out it won't fit, starts the second page, reruns the before print, and so you end up counting this gauge twice. The same thing happens with test 6. It gets counted twice, and so I end up with 2 extra counts on my past due, which is a problem. The way to get around that is to not use a label. Instead, what I do is I use a variable. So the variable is just this object, and you'll want to set the timing. So for example, here I set it to reset on the group end on company. whereas this one, the default timing is just reset on report end. I've also changed these both to integers just to make the code a little easier. And then in the calculations, all I have to do is say, if the due date's less than the current date, add 1 to each variable. And so this, you will notice, simply works regardless of how many pages there are. So here we've got 17, 1, and 18, which is the correct value. And if I shrink that back down, it's still 17, 1, and 18, the same as what the labels were. The other thing to be aware of is this variable 1 only requires one piece of code as opposed to several pieces that are somewhat more complicated. Once you have this done, then you can do fun things like add additional logic in order to determine the percent past due, display the amount that are on time, things like that. But this is how we handle conditional counting, and it's a fairly easy little trick, but it's also easy to miss. Have a good day. Enjoy the Tip Tuesday.